Howdy Moz fans, and welcome to another edition of Whiteboard Friday. This week we're going to chat about on-page SEO, keyword targeting, but beyond keyword targeting into all the realms of the things that we need to optimize on an individual URL in order to have the best chance of success in the search engines in 2016. And so what does that involve? Well, look, we could spend a tremendous amount of time on any one of these, but I'm going to share 8 principles that are kind of behind all of the tactical work that you would put into optimizing that page for that keyword, term, phrase, or set of phrases. And most likely in 2016, it is a set of phrases that you're targeting rather than just a single keyword term. Okay, let's start with number 1. What we are trying to do is fulfill the searcher's goal and satisfy their intent. So there's an intent behind every search query. I'm seeking some information, I'm seeking to accomplish a task. Oftentimes that initial intent is different from the final goal that someone might have. I'll give you an example. When someone searches for types of wedding formal wear, we might infer from that query that right now their specific intent behind this search is they want to see different kinds of potential formal wear that they could wear to a wedding, maybe as a guest, or as a bride or a groom. Okay? But their ultimate goal is probably going to be to decide on one of those specific things and then potentially purchase that item or take something from their wardrobe and add it in there. But this means that we need to try and serve both intents. It's actually going to be really tough if we're an e-commerce player to say, hey, you know what? I want to rank for types of wedding formal wear, and I want to rank for it with a page that tells people to buy this particular tuxedo. That's tough for a bunch of reasons. You don't know whether that formal wear is going to be necessarily, black tie in the United States, which is tuxedo. You don't know whether that person is a male or a female when they're performing the search, right? A woman, well, they might buy a tuxedo, but probably not, at least statistically speaking. They're probably not going to. They're probably going to buy a dress. And you might have much more success with a piece of content like 20 suits and tuxes men look great in at a wedding, right? And especially if I'm targeting men, or if this is types of men's wedding formal wear, that's probably going to be a piece of content that has a great chance of serving the searcher's intent and fulfilling their goals, especially if we then take that content and link off to the places where you can buy or accessorize all those different pieces. So we're trying to do both of these items in number 1. Number 2, speed, speed, and more speed. This is very simplistic, but the idea is really easy here. We know that user satisfaction is a signal that Google interprets in some ways directly and in many, many ways indirectly. We also know that abandonment rates are very high, even higher on mobile for longer loading pages. We know that pages that have fast load times earn more links and amplification. We know that pages that earn more links earn more engagement on them. We know that all of these things, including speed itself, is positively correlated with rankings. And we know that Google has made page load speed a small, albeit small, but a ranking signal inside their algorithm directly. So critically important. Related to number 2 is number 3, which is creating trust and engagement through UI, UX, and branding. And speed is certainly a big part of the user experience. This is also critical because these two both touch on being mobile friendly, right? Having that multi-device friendliness so that it's capable on any device. UI, UX, and branding, though, go into some different areas, right? So if I have my website, I'm really looking for a few different aspects of it from the SEO point of view. And this is frustrating because it touches on a lot of things that historically have been outside the control of search engine optimization professionals. Thankfully, as SEO becomes more multidisciplinary inside a marketing team, hopefully we have more ability to influence these things. Stuff like, have people actually heard of your domain? Do they know you, like you, and trust you? Do you have UI and visual elements that make them perceive you as being trustworthy, even if this is the first time they've ever heard of you? And that can be things like the images on the page, it can be the navigation, it can be the color scheme, it can be the UI library that you might be using, or how you've done the visual layout of things. all of those pieces go into that, do you look trustworthy? And that's certainly a consideration that a lot of folks have when they're doing, when they're looking at searches. Are you intuitive to access? And I mean intuitive both from a navigation standpoint and from the consumption of the content on the page as well. And hopefully you have some external validation signals to indicate that the content you have and the brand that you are is trustworthy. Those can be things like testimonials. They can also mean things like references or citations for the data or information that you're providing, or links out, all that kind of stuff. All right, number 4, you want to avoid elements that distract searchers or dissuade them from visiting you either this time or in the future. And the most common ones of these that we like to talk about a lot are ones that interfere with the content consumption experience. That's things like overlays. Do you want to stay married? If so, download our guide. And then you have to say, yes, of course I want to stay married, or no, I'm a terrible person and I will not click on your pop-up. And then another pop-up will come up. Those types of overlays obviously have negative impacts, and you can see them in your user and usage data, your engagement data, and you can determine how much of a sacrifice you're willing to make in exchange for, well, we did get some email addresses out of this, or we got some conversion rate, and so we're willing to make that sacrifice, versus no, we're not willing to make these sacrifices. You have to choose what types of engagement dissuading apparatuses you're willing to put on your site. But be aware, pogo sticking is a ranking signal. It's something that they judge indirectly for sure, and directly potentially as well. Pogo sticking meaning a searcher clicked on your listing in the results, they went to your site, and then they clicked the back button and chose someone else from the results. And Google interprets that, Bing interprets that very poorly for you. All right, number 5, keyword targeting. Keyword targeting, classic on-page ranking signal, still true today. I know that many of us still see, or are starting to see, a lot more entrants into the search results that don't do very particular keyword targeting, at least don't do it the way we've historically perceived it, where it's very keyword driven. But it's still incredibly smart to do this if and when you can. You just need to balance it out with all these other aspects. Places that I would start. In fact, this is basically in order of importance. Title element, I would place the keyword term or phrase, the most important term or phrase that you're targeting, in the title element, in the headline of the page. That can be the H1 tag, but it doesn't need to be. It could be just the bold, big headline at the top. That should match the page title, generally speaking, or be very close. Because what you don't want is, you don't want a searcher who clicked on one title element and then landed on a page that had a different headline, and they perceive that mismatch, and so they click the back button. That's dangerous. You want it obviously in the page content. If you can, when you can control it, you want it in external anchor links to the page. So if, for example, I have my page about, or my homepage about weddings, and I am interviewed for something, I might put in my bio, something about the wedding styles website that I own and control, and I would link back to that in that external anchor text. I want it potentially in the alt attribute of any images or photos or visuals that I've got on the page. I want it in the URL, again, if I can control it, and the URL is less important, right? So we're going in decreasing order of importance here. I want it in the image name, especially if I'm trying to rank in Google image search. Image name, the file name of the actual image, does matter and is important. And finally, I want it in internal links to the degree that it's intelligent and balanced and doesn't look spammy. Do all these items, you've got your keyword targeting down, but this is not like the past where just nailing keyword targeting is going to take my rankings to where they need to be. I got to do all these other 7 things too, including number 6, related topics targeting. So related topics is basically this concept that Google has a huge graph of lexical combinations, right, and semantic analysis. And they can essentially say, hey, when we see wedding formal wear, we often also see these terms and phrases, terms like tuxedo, tux, wedding dress, bow tie, vest. In the United Kingdom, almost certainly you would see waistcoat, which is what we call a vest here in the United States, or a wedding suit, right, which is what is traditionally worn in weddings in the UK versus a tuxedo here in the United States. Now, given that Google sees these terms and phrases very commonly associated with this one, they've essentially started to build up this graph between these. And so these topics, they would say, are very important to this search term. If someone's looking for wedding formal wear, it's unusual for them to find a page that has high relevance for users that doesn't also include these types of words and phrases. Therefore, as a search marketer, right, as a content creator, we need to think about what are those terms and phrases that are related here, and how do I make sure to include them in my content? If I don't, my ranking opportunity may decrease compared to my competitors who've intelligently used those terms and phrases. Okay. Number 7, snippet optimization. With a page, we're not just trying to drive the ranking, we're also trying to drive the click, right? So ranking number 4 and earning, a 6% click-through rate, that might not be great, especially if the average is more like 11%, right? Then we're earning half the average for our ranking position. That seems a little funny. Those percentages are not precise, but you get the idea. We want to have the best optimized snippet that we possibly can in the SERP. So you can see here I've got this, what to wear to a formal wedding, a guide from randsfashion.com, and it's mobile friendly, and it's on, published on May 10th, 2016, and then it has this nice meta description, the snippet there. This is essentially my advertisement to searchers saying, please click on my link. I want your click. All right. Bunch of elements that go into this. The title, obviously, the meta description, the URL format, right? This randsfashion.com, very simple on home pages, gets much more complex when we have pages that are internal, because Google starts to assign categories. If you have messy URL parameters or inconsistent categories, tagging systems, that can get nasty. Publication date matters quite a bit, especially for searches that have a fresh component. So if people are searching for types of wedding formal wear, well, you might not need to worry too much. But what if lots of people who search for this search for types of wedding formal wear 2016? Well, now you really need that fresh publication date. And in fact, if Google sees lots of people search for that, they might actually take it as an intent signal that types of wedding formal wear alone deserves that date in there, and that they should be ranking fresher content higher up because lots of people are looking for more recent modern stuff. Use of schema, whenever there's an opportunity, for example, if you're in the recipe space, there's schema markup specifically for recipes. If you're in the news space, there's opportunities for news. If you do video, Google doesn't really obey it very much except with YouTube, but there are video opportunities for schema markup. And there's all sorts of other kinds depending on what you're in, certainly local and maps and a bunch of other ones. Domain name, that is something to consider. And in fact, when you're registering a domain name and building out a site, you should be thinking about how people want to click on it, the brandability, the snippet optimization, all that. Content format. Content format's particularly important because Google has started, especially when there's a more question-based search query, they've started showing those longer meta descriptions. And so if you can encapsulate what you know is essentially the critical piece of content that answers the user's question, chances are you might be able to get that larger space, vertical space in the SERP, and that might mean that you can draw more clicks in as well. This works really well with lists. It works nicely with forums and discussions, threads. It works nicely with sort of elements where you have a bunch of specific, how-to, step-by-step process, those types of things. Same story with instant answer possibilities, right? That you want to appear at the top of that Google SERP with an instant answer if you can. We know that that actually doesn't take away click-through rate. It actually drives more of it. In fact, the real estate there means that you often get more clicks than organic position 1, which is pretty great. And of course, all the different kinds of SERP feature opportunities, like we talked about, images, maps, local, news, what have you. Okay, last one, number 8, unique value and amplification. So this is kind of the final piece of things that we're thinking about as we do on-page optimization in 2016, and that is, I need to be thinking about what bar do I need to reach in order to have a chance to rank well, and rank consistently. And this is tough, right? So, if the difficulty of ranking is very easy, the bar that I need to cross is probably somewhere between, classic good, unique content, like this content is good, it's unique, and it exists. That's all it needs. That's a very, very low bar. Even for easy rankings, I would not suggest making that your bar. I'd put it somewhere between there and twice as good as anyone else in the competition. But essentially targeting the same types of things, right? You're doing the same kind of content, you just feel like you're better than anything else in the top 10. That might be a reasonable enough bar for an easy ranking. If it gets moderate, if it gets tough, I need to go up to uniquely valuable. Uniquely valuable, by that we've had a whole Whiteboard Friday on it, which we can refer to, but uniquely valuable being this idea that I provide a value that no one else in the search results provides. So it's not simply that I'm doing a better job, I'm also doing a unique job of providing information or data or visuals, whatever it is, that is more and different value than anybody else. And then finally, what we've called 10x content. If you have an insane difficulty of ranking, that might be the minimum bar that you need to hit. And we'll link over to the 10x video as well. Basically, the questions that I'm asking when I'm talking about providing unique value and being worthy of amplification, which is something that our content needs to consider too, is what makes this better than what already ranks? Do you have a great answer to that question? If you don't, you should probably get one before you try targeting those keywords and producing that content. Why will this be difficult or impossible for others to replicate? What's the barrier to entry that your content provides that all the other content providers can't just look and go, oh, well, I see that Rand's done a very nice job ranking there. I'll just take that and do it. That should be easy. You need a barrier to entry. What value does this page provide that no other page in the SERPs provides? And that goes to our unique value question. And the last one, who? Who will help amplify this piece of content and why? If you don't have a great answer to who and why, it's going to be incredibly difficult to get that amplification. If you can't get the amplification, it's going to be really, really hard to rank, because as much as on-page optimization does matter, and all of these 8 principles matter for rankings, SEO in 2016 is not merely about on-page, but about off-page as well, just as it's been the last decade, 15 years. And so as we're creating content, we need to think about that amplification process too. All right, everyone, look forward to your thoughts, and we'll see you again next week for another edition of Whiteboard Friday. Take care.